Hello and welcome. My name is H.G. Chazelle, and I'm the founder and CEO of Advanced Energy Group. I'm also your host for today's Speaker Challenge Highlight. Advanced Energy Group, or AEG, is a stakeholder engagement platform designed to foster alignment, teamwork, and action for leaders committed to delivering bold promises on clean energy and equity. On January 27th, Rich Dewey, President and CEO of New York Independent System Operators, will be one of our 4 speakers competing to articulate an urgent obstacle regarding critical infrastructure and resilience that we must collectively address with near-term solutions in order for New York to meet its bold clean energy and equity goals by 2040. New York ISO reliably manages New York's power grid and competitive wholesale energy markets while serving nearly 20 million New Yorkers and over 400 wholesale energy market participants.
When you think about the challenge and the nature of the way you've drawn out the challenges is, we're trying to incentivize thought leadership in the near term. What do we need to do in the next 12 months to solve a critical problem? And I kind of look at it as, the critical problem is 15 or 20 years away, but the decisions and some of the innovation we need to settle on in order to hit that timeline really does need to happen now. So I think of it, I look at the challenge and you think about the goals that New York State has established, 70% renewable by 2030. That's a tall order, but we have the technology in place to do that today. I mean, we can do that with wind and solar and storage with the right kind of transmission build out. And that's very achievable. And that's really just coordination, and that's making the right kind of investments. But when you start thinking about those 2040 goals and how do we maintain a carbon-free electric system when we're so heavily dependent on, weather patterns, the capability and performance of storage, I'm personally convinced that there's new technologies, that there's investment that needs to be made in development in technologies that we don't have today that's going to be necessary. Because 2040 is going to come really quick, and we're going to need some tools like that. And that's something where we've got to start really narrowing the field of what the options are and start making really critical investments in the research, in the commercialization of those technologies. And I think that's something that we've really got to focus on. I don't want to be so, we don't want to, these goals are challenging, but we can't let ourselves fall into the trap of just thinking about 2030. We got to start working on 2040 now, because the whole system is going to be dependent on us being successful in doing that.
Connecting the dots on how critical infrastructure and resilience not only relates to clean energy goals, but how does it benefit the equity issues that New York has committed to address? How do you see those dots connecting?
Well, I think it manifests itself in the communities where these resources are located, right? And these polluting resources are located frequently, very, very close to the load centers, which means they're in communities where people live. And you see the detrimental impact that the performance of these units has. And the pollutants that they provide into these residential communities. So the way that we can, the way that we can solve this problem and address that concern is to replace them either with something that's located somewhere else, which requires a whole lot of transmission to move the power into it, or replace them with something that doesn't have the pollutant impact, that doesn't emit the kind of whether it's the carbon dioxide, which is the focus, but other pollutants as well. Right? We need to start building and planning for and designing the resource that is not dependent on wind, that is not dependent on solar, that is flexible and can produce carbon-free electrons for a potentially unlimited duration. That's the resource that we need, that we will need in 2040 to hit that goal. Today, that resource is a gas turbine. Gas turbines produce carbon dioxide, and that's not going to be, that's not going to be achieved. That's not going to be allowed under the rules that we've established to meet these goals. So if we're going to hit these goals, we need a resource that can do that. And what is it? And we need to start defining what that is now, because it's going to take us that long to build and design the infrastructure necessary and the incentives, quite honestly, the incentives to make that investment. And we need to figure out what that is soon. When you start thinking about stakeholder engagement, the stakeholders that are going to be very, very valuable to get involved in this process in the next 5 years, 10 years, are different stakeholders than have been involved in the past, right? So the industry is going through this monumental change. There's new technologies, there's new players that we need to enter, and we need them to come in a way that's collaborative and that they've got the information they need to present the kind of resources and the performance of those resources to contribute to not only to helping achieve the goals of a highly renewable, zero carbon electric system, but also do so in a way that allows maintain reliability. How
do you approach that process, and what have you seen works in doing that?
I think, primarily trying to establish a relationship with some of the investors and some of the providers of this new technology to understand, number one, how do these assets perform? What should we expect from a performance standpoint, from a participation in the grid standpoint? What can they do? What are they able to do? And then also making sure that those participants understand what's necessary, what attributes we need on the system, so that we can get that intersection between what the technology can provide and what the grid actually needs. And then from there, with that knowledge and that information, then as a system operator, we can design the reliability rules that enable that type of participation. And then we can build the market signals that will attract the kind of investment so that commercially, those resources see a line of sight that they can get the revenue that they need to make the investment that they need. So it's really establishing that intersection between understanding what the technology can do and understanding what the needs of the existing electric system are. It's not just clean electrons. We need flexibility. When you start thinking about how the demands of consumers, which is very, very high reliability, they want to know that when they flip that switch, those lights come on when they need it. That doesn't comport very well with a highly intermittent, highly variable set of resources that are dependent on weather, like wind and solar and those kind of things. So to be able to have the right technologies and the right resources in place so that we can immediately provide the necessary supply when the wind dies down or when the sun goes behind the clouds. Those are the types of new technologies. Those are the types of resources that are going to be necessary to maintain the level of reliability that consumers demand as we build out this highly intermittent, highly renewable electric system. It's really all about recognizing that we have these resources today. We absolutely need them, and they need to perform and they need to be available in order to keep the lights on. But if you start thinking about what the impact that has on communities, the only way that you're going to be able to continue to maintain a level of reliability is to replace them with something else that's clean or something else that's that doesn't have the same kind of impact.
Excellent. Rich, thanks so much for your time. This was just a real delight for me to get to talk with you, and certainly look forward to you participating as a stakeholder challenger on January 27th. Look forward to seeing you then.
Yeah, thanks, HG. The work that you and your team do is so valuable to us, and and I appreciate the involvement. I'm looking forward to it.